Siddhant, I also would like to understand, considering India has achieved a prolific success with Chandrayaan-3, that was also something that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had spoken about the growing collaboration between India's scientific community and also the researchers community. Do you think that also becomes an important aspect that will be discussed as part of this bilateral?
Well, yes, absolutely. And in fact, that was discussed during bilateral with President Biden. So, look, the way India or perhaps Prime Minister Modi is projecting India is important because the India's recent success to moon, and also the overall roadmap and program that ISRO is carrying out, or perhaps the ambitious space program that India has, is something which is interesting, which is perhaps attracting the global community and many countries like United States of America. So with America this time around, when Prime Minister Modi was in DC, there were talks of collaborating in space sector, especially the private sectors in both the countries can come together and perhaps can do collaboration in the ambitious space program. So that even applies to UK because there were a lot of appreciation from Rishi Sunak's government the time India successfully completed Chandrayaan mission, and in fact the senior official in his government congratulated the government of India. So we can expect space to be one of the key issue on the agenda when both leaders are going to meet to perhaps sit for the talks. But most likely the agenda which is going to dominate this bilateral meeting would be the trade talk, which is still going on. Then the issue of separatists, then the fugitives in London, then also UK and India. Both the countries are doing a lot in health sector. Visa relaxation is something which India is demanding from UK for its citizens. Then also there could be an announcement of some program for students here in India. So these are going to be some key agendas, and in fact there are other sectors also where both leaders can discuss to expand cooperation or can further deepen strengthen ties. So that would be something which we'll get to know once this bilateral will get over. Also, this is very important for our viewers that when we say bilateral meeting, since it's happening on the sideline of a multilateral event, so we should not expect some big ticket announcement or some sort of major deliverables or takeaways from the bilateral. These bilaterals are mostly to review the progress in the previous announcements and also to fast track some of the pending works, or also an opportunity for both leaders to sit and talk. The bilateral which PM Modi had with President Biden yesterday, since he's on the state visit, was important. The bilateral which Prime Minister Modi will have with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is going to be significant because he's again on the state visit. So these two countries have been given exception by India. The bilateral with the other countries are going to be the routine ones to fast track the previous announcement, to review the works, also to praise the committees, intergovernment consultation groups, and also to review the progress that they have made. So largely it's going to be that, and the same is going to be applied when it comes to bilateral with the United Kingdom. Back to you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Siddhant. In fact, Siddhant and Anurma, I'll request both of you to stay on with us. I'll just take a quick minute to explain to our viewers what exactly has Prime Minister Narendra Modi really said in his opening address. This is day one of the G20 summit. The key points that have in fact been laid down by the Prime Minister, the first thing that he speaks about, new challenges and seeking new solutions, is what is the main goal of the G20 summit, and India looks at achieving that with other world leaders. It's a group of 20, now 21, with the African Union also part of the G20 summit. Human-centric approach, that is what is needed. That's the other point that the Prime Minister makes. He also goes on and re-pushes that entire pitch that has been the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Prime Minister's pitch, which is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and that can be the guiding principle. That's what the Prime Minister has said. post-COVID, there is a trust deficit. This is a concern that the Prime Minister has raised as far as his opening address is concerned. He further goes on to say that there must be a reduction in that global trust deficit. Coming together of all the G21 forces requires that ample amount of trust that is much needed. Pledge to transform that trust deficit. So he goes on further to drill that point home that there needs to be a global cooperation and trust is must for moving forward. Transform deficit in trustworthy ties. Whether it is the communication between China, Russia, and India, whether UK now that is happening, or even the United States of America, that entire trust needs to be built, must work together for a better future. That was the key point that the Prime Minister went on to go ahead and mention. Let me go back to my colleague Arunima, who continues to be with us on the broadcast. Arunima just broke down the points that Prime Minister Narendra Modi made as far as the opening address is concerned. He talks about a global trust deficit that really is something that the world leaders need to look at, especially in the wake of this entire communication really going the way that there is no China, there is no Russia. At least the precedents are missing from this grand summit that India is hosting, and this entire communication really is going there, because even in the press conference that was addressed by the Sherpa and also the chief coordinator of G20, this was the key question that was presented by most of the people, most of the media present. How does one read this statement by the Prime Minister vis-a-vis that?
You know, as far as India and perhaps many others like Japan and even the other countries of Southeast Asia are concerned, China seems to be the elephant in the room. The West is more concerned about Russia. The West is more concerned about the Russia-Ukraine war. But for these countries, China, its expansionist policies, the way it has just, circulated its new map, all of that is of concern. And the way Prime Minister has welcomed the African Union into the G20 fold, logically speaking, it should now be called the G21 fold. And right at the outset, I think that is the big takeaway, not just because it is in sync with India and Prime Minister's message of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but it is also perhaps a message for Chinese expansionist strategies. China watchers, Africa watchers have pointed out that while China has the money power, India is showing its soft power, its compassion, its karuna is the Sanskrit words for it. Why was African Union not part of G20 so far? It represents 55 countries. If European Union could be represented at G20, why leave Africa behind? And since India is making this G20 pitch as a pitch for the global south, for the Prime Minister to right at the outset welcome African Union on board was a message being sent. The message was also that, Africa is a continent which has been wooed hard by China, and there are, like I said, there is a money power angle as well there. What India is professing is that we understand your issues, we understand your concerns, and we are here. The troika that the Prime Minister had spoken about earlier, India, Brazil, Indonesia. What the Prime Minister is now saying is that the troika is here with the global south, willing to take along countries from the African Union, represent their concerns at the big stage. And in that sense, this message, his opening remarks, and that gesture of getting AU on board was very significant. It would be the leading headline in a large part of the world tomorrow.
Right. Arunima, thank you so much for that perspective. And with that,